Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Hare Krishna dear devotees, thank you very much for joining us on this Ekadashi day. It's Vaman Dwadasi, and also it's the appearance day of Srila Jiva Goswami. So we wanted to seek the blessings of the devotees and the spiritual master and the Guru Parampara, and especially his Divine Grace Jiva, Srila Jiva Goswami, so that we can please them by a little bit of an offering here that we're going to read about them, and blessings from Radha Krishna Gonitai, so that we can adequately say something fitting for their wonderful devotee, who's actually a Manjari in the spiritual world. So, Srila Jiva Goswami was the nephew of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, who are the most famous of the Goswamis. And he's the son of their brother Anupam. Devotees may recall Rupa and Sanatan Goswami are two of the 6 Goswamis, as is Jiva Goswami, who they were instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And later on, they went to Vrindavan. They stayed there the whole life, and they did an incredible service in Vrindavan. And they were joined also by Jiva Goswami. He was born in the year 1511 in the village of Ramakeli, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first actually met Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. Jiva Goswami displayed all the charming features of a Mahapurush, divine person. He had lotus eyes, a high nose, forehead, broad chest, long arms, and a radiant golden body. He was a baby when Rupa and Sanatan placed him at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was very, very fortunate. Jiva Goswami did have a vague recollection of this wonderful pastime. He was from a young age very devotionally minded. He didn't like to play mundane sports. He would make images of Krishna Balaram. He had a special affliction for Krishna Balaram. He would dress them, decorate them with jewels and flowers. He would offer them sandalwood pulp, and he would offer obeisances with tears in his eyes. He would offer them sweets, and that prasad he would distribute to his friends. So this is from a young age. And he was very attached to Krishna Balaram. At bedtime, he would embrace them and fall asleep with them. And his parents would think, he's just playing around. But actually, he had great love and devotion for Krishna Balaram. And the villagers, they would notice this, and they would be quite amazed how this boy was so devoted at such a young age. Rupa Goswami made arrangements for his education, and his schooling was, he was very bright. He became a scholar in Bengali, Sanskrit, Urdu, Arabic, Parsi. But his forte was Sanskrit, especially Sanskrit grammar. But in school, he mastered poetry, logic, philosophy. He was a real scholar. The Bhagavatam, it was his life. He used to read, study Bhagavatam a lot, and nobody would speak to him apart from about Lord Krishna. He dreamt about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Sankirtan. He would be overwhelmed with love for Chaitanya. And after the age of 20, he left home to go to Navadvip to seek out Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Unfortunately, when he arrived there, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already left this world. He went back to the spiritual world, and everybody was devastated. His mother, his servant, Srivasacharya, Advaita, everybody was really devastated. Nityananda. Jiva Goswami had the great fortune of meeting Lord Nityananda at the house of Srivas Pandit. And Nityananda took care of Jiva Goswami. He showed him all the holy sites in Navadvip Dham, the different islands, the different holy places. And Lord Nityananda blessed him, placed his lotus feet on his head. And Jiva Goswami didn't want to leave Nityananda, but Nityananda said, you have much work to do. So he ordered him to go to Varanasi to study the Vedanta Sutra, and then to join Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, his uncles, in Vrindavan. So Jiva Goswami was very obedient. He left for Varanasi. He studied the scriptures under Madhusudan, not our Madhusudan, another Madhusudan, Vachaspati. He was a disciple of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya actually taught this disciple everything that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taught Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So he was very learned. So he taught him about the Vedanta Sutras. And then Jiva Goswami went on to Vrindavan, and he became a pupil of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. And Rupa would guide him, and Jiva would serve him, wash his feet, prepare his manuscripts, edit his books. And eventually he received initiation from Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Goswami wrote amazing scriptures, and Jiva Goswami would assist him. He was actually an amazing scholar. Once what happened, a very instructive incident that took place. Rupa Goswami was writing Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, that's called The Nectar of Devotion, that's translated by Srila Prabhupada. Very, very good book to read and understand, because it talks about a lot of the different mellows of devotion that we've been talking about in respect of the gopis. Anyway, Rupa Goswami was writing this wonderful scripture, and at that time Vallabhacharya came, and he's from the which city is it? Radhaswami Sampradaya. He's very important Sampradaya, Pushti Marg, that's right, Pushti Marg. And he was a little elderly, and Rupa Goswami would respect him. He's a Vaishnav. So Rupa Goswami showed him the scripture. And Vallabhacharya, after reading, suggested some corrections. Now, when Jiva Goswami witnessed this, he was really unhappy, because Rupa Goswami is perfect. He is, after all, Rupa Manjari, the head of the Manjaris in Golok Vrindavan. He can't make mistakes. So Jiva was a little upset with Vallabhacharya. So then Vallabhacharya went to the Yamuna to take a bath. Jiva followed him, and he challenged him at the Yamuna. And he challenged him. He said to Vallabhacharya, what's wrong with the verses that Rupa had written? And Vallabhacharya explained, and Jiva corrected Vallabhacharya. He pointed out the flaws in his arguments. And Vallabhacharya was very impressed with Jiva Goswami. Very, very impressed. This young man. Anyway, Vallabhacharya returned to Rupa Goswami, and he expressed his admiration for Jiva's scholarship. And Rupa asked why, what happened? So then Vallabhacharya explained exactly what happened. Now inside, Rupa Goswami was very happy, but outside, externally, he rebuked Jiva. He said he should have tolerated Vallabhacharya. He's older than you, he's a learned Vaishnav. You shouldn't have done this. And he told him, you should leave Vrindavan, because then when you calm down, you come back to Vrindavan. Otherwise, you should leave. Now, as I said, inside, Rupa Goswami is very happy, because there's two aspects to this. One is that when the spiritual master is involved, the disciples should do their best to serve the spiritual master. And if somebody finds fault in the spiritual master, and you know there is no fault, then it's partly some duty there for the disciple to assist the spiritual master. But at the same time, Rupa Goswami wanted to show, not Jiva Goswami, but show us that there is an etiquette that we have to follow. So anyway, Jiva Goswami was banished. And he didn't go back to Bengal, but he went to Nandgat, nearby village, and he did some extreme austerities, rigorous austerities. He was worshipping Krishna intensely. He wanted to be forgiven by Rupa Goswami, hardly ate anything. And he did such heavy austerity, his body became emancipated. One day, Sanatana Goswami heard about this sadhu who was doing such tapasya. He realized this is Jiva Goswami. So he went there and he saw the condition of Jiva Goswami. Then he brought him before Rupa Goswami and explained to Rupa Goswami that he should forgive Jiva Goswami and bless him. And Rupa Goswami was very kind-hearted. Of course, he completely forgave and blessed his disciple, Jiva Goswami. So, Srila Prabhupada once commented on the guru-disciple pastime. Srila Rupa Goswami was happy inside, but cast out Jiva Goswami to teach us, the devotees of today, a lesson. It was not done to teach or punish Jiva Goswami, who is a perfectly liberated soul, eternal associate of Krishna. Rupa Goswami sent Jiva Goswami out of Vrindavan to teach all Jivas what he wrote in Upadeshamrit. Vacho Vegam, Manaso Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, etc. A devotee should control his tongue, his speech, and always remain humble. Trinada Vesunichana. So this was very instructive. So Jiva Goswami was the youngest of all the 6 Goswamis. He was a very prolific writer. It said that he wrote 500,000 Sanskrit verses, 25 books. Some of these books are huge. And he would write these Sanskrit verses, he would think of them, write them down without changing anything. And the way he would write them down was use a metal stylus to permanently ink them into the palm leaves. And that meant there was no question of erasing, editing, rewriting, or running a spell check. And yet each verse was a priceless gem of perfect meter, rhythm, poetry, and meaning. He's regarded to be the greatest philosopher of all time. And contemporary Sanskrit scholars call him the greatest scholar who ever lived. So he's very renowned. His books show Chaitanya's philosophy gives the essence of Vedic wisdom and the perfection of religion. Anyone who faithfully reads these books will become a devotee of Krishna. So some of his works, Satsandarbha, very important work, describes the ultimate end of devotional service, establishing the transcendental truths of Bhagavatam, and also it confirms Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cause of all causes. And then there's Gopal Champu, which we referred to a lot when we were looking at the structure of the spiritual and the material worlds, because he gives a very detailed description of Krishna's pastimes as well as Krishna's land in Vrindavan. He also wrote another book. He wrote many actually, but this is another one main ones, Hari Nam Vyakarana, which is basically Sanskrit grammar, but in relation to Krishna. So he didn't do anything that was not in relation to Lord Krishna. And this is one of the verses from the Gopala Champu. From Govardhan hill, a large form of Govardhan manifested. All the Brajvasis, along with Krishna himself, then offered obeisances to that towering form. As Sri Krishna stood by with folded hands, that great personality, Govardhan, bellowed, "I shall eat all your offerings." So this is the wonderful pastime of Govardhan Puja. He ate and drank by emptying all the kunds around the hill. While eating all the preparations made by the Brajvasis with his right hand, he snapped the finger of his left hand. The cowherd men ran out of the way when Govardhan stretched out his hands to take more and called out, "Anior, Anior, Anior, bring more, bring more, bring more." It's a very famous pastime of Govardhan Leela. And this is expressed very nicely in this Gopal Champu by Jiva Goswami. One of the devotees who's translating these sandarbhas into English for ISKCON has given this explanation. His name is Satyanarayan Das. He's actually written many books, really nice author. he summarizes the scriptures in a very nice way. Actually, so this is what he's saying. Srila Jiva Goswami's name, Jiva, is very interesting when considered in light of the Bhagavad verse, Ahastani sahastanam apadani chatus padam jivo jivasya jivanam. Animals without hands are food for those with hands. Those without feet are food for the four-legged. Everywhere, one jiva, living entity, is food for another. Another meaning of jiva is one who gives life to others. So the spiritual knowledge given by Jiva Goswami in his 25 books gives life to all the devotees. Another name of jiva is jivaka, one who makes the jivas, living entities, emit ecstatic sounds. Srila Jiva Goswami did this by supplying the esoteric meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam through his Bhagavad commentaries and the Satsandarbhas. One who expands the nature of the jiva, his relationship with the Lord, the process to achieve the goal, and the ultimate purpose of life is jivakan or jiva. So it's a nice definition of jiva. After the disappearance of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, Jiva became the Gaudiya Sampradaya Acharya. He guided all the Vaishnavas in Navadvip, Vrindavan, Puri, and he was the undisputed leader. But of course, he was always very, very humble. Whenever Vaishnavas visited to Vrindavan, he would lovingly receive them, give them prasad and place to live, etc., and guide them on Brajmandal Parikram. At the request of Acharya Rani, Janava Devi Thakurani, Srila Jiva Goswami had Srinivas Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur, and Shyamananda Prabhu take the Goswami's writings from Vrindavan to Bengal. They translated them into Bengali and distributed them throughout Bengal and Orissa. They also preached extensively and initiated hundreds of devotees. So these were all Jiva Goswami's books, and they were the first books to be distributed widely. In 1542, Jiva Goswami established the worship of Shri Radha Damodar in Sevakunj, Vrindavan. This is Radha Damodar. Now they are based in Jaipur. When the Mughal invaders came, these deities were shifted from Vrindavan to Jaipur. That's right. Is that right? Jaipur? Radha Damodar? No, not in Jaipur. There are somewhere else. Koroli, I think. They're Koroli, I think. His samadhi, where he was buried, is in the temple compound of the Sri Radha Damodar temple. That temple is very famous in Vrindavan because the samadhi and bhajan kutis of Rupa Goswami is there. And our own Prabhupada, he lived there before he came to the US. And he did a lot of seva there. He translated the Bhagavatams there. And it was a very special place for him. And even today, the rooms that he was staying in, the bedroom and the kitchen are still preserved in his memory. And Srila Jiva Goswami is Vilas Manjari in Radha Damodar's Nitya Vrindavan Leela. And we'll hopefully talk about Vilas Manjari on Monday. So he appeared today, which is Bhadra Shukla Dwadasi, and his disappearance day is in Pausha Shukla Ditya. So this is Jiva Goswami, his samadhi in the Radha Damodar temple. So that's all I had to say about Jiva. Wanted to move on to Vaman Dev's appearance day. Let me see if I can bring this up. Oh, let me just do one thing. Okay. Srila Jiva Goswami ki jai.